like to introduce Juanita Clark, CEO of FTTH Council Africa.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I get to be the very, very last speaker. So this morning I was at the coffee station here next door, where I think most of us have spent a substantial amount of time getting yet another coffee fix. And somebody walked up to me and said, introduced himself and said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from Africa, South Africa." And he said, "But you're not black." So I'm sorry, I'm not, but here I am nonetheless. I'm just going to take a little bit of time to tell you a little bit about what's happening on the continent of Africa. And Kamala. Okay, so we are actually the youngest of all the councils, but we've currently got just over 70 members. We are fast becoming one of the larger FTTH councils around the world. And that's really indicative of what's happening on the continent in Africa. Roland said it so nicely this morning. He said it's becoming the breadbasket of the fiber optic industry. So it's a massive continent. We all know that. I think statistics says that by January 2015, they had deployed over 1 million route kilometers of fiber optic infrastructure, mainly national long-distance infrastructure. But we've seen a substantial shift into last mile and metro fiber. So like most of us, I'm doing an iDate presentation. I said today, I don't know why Roland doesn't just do it on our behalf. But yes, so I think most of us have seen the submarine cables. There's now currently 5 submarine cables that are linking the continent of Africa, bringing massive amounts of fiber optic high-speed internet to the continent. If you look at the terrestrial backbone, you'll see that still major problem is Central Africa. For many, many years, one of the biggest things that we did as an industry association is we lobbied for cross-border penetration. And you have to understand what a mammoth task this is, because what you do is you really go to security, border security, and you approach them to ask them to give you permission to bring fiber optics over no man's land. So, thank you. I needed the mood there. And of course, you know, you can imagine, these guys go, "You want to do what?" So for a long time, what happened was that companies would deploy fiber up to the border. They would have a wireless connection over no man's land, and then they would continue with fiber on the other side again. And it took literally years to start educating African governments that we had to cross and connect all these fibers into the countries. Unfortunately, you'll still see that in Central Africa, there's still big glaring gaps where there's very little. The good news is that we can see that the market's maturing, and it's like a pebble in the pond effect, and we can see that it's rippling, because now we're already seeing lots of FTTH being deployed in some of the coastal countries. So these are the FTTH leading countries in Africa. Some of the good news is that Mauritius is doing really, really well. A lot of people say that, you know, but it's a small island. It's all relative, you know. We all understand the, you know, economics. They've got less income as well, so they're doing very well. But once again, it was something that was driven by the incumbent. They decided that they wanted to connect all their customers with fiber, and they were very successful in doing that. South Africa is taking the lead. I was having a conversation with somebody this morning, and I said, you know, just 6 years ago, we were doing a lot of lobby work for fiber optic in particularly South Africa, and we did a lot of press releases, and a lot of the major operators came out and they were attacking us on our fiber strategy, saying this is the mobile continent. This continent will never have fiber to the home. We might have fiber for other purposes, but we'll never see FTTH. Right now, those same mobile operators are spending billions in deploying their own FTTH strategies. So sub-Saharan Africa, the telecom market, if you look at the maturity of the market, you can see the FTTH subscribers, particularly in South Africa. What's happened recently is we've had an awakening by government realizing that policy and regulatory aspects are really not what it should be, and there were glaring gaps in legislation. And they're about to launch a document which forms part of their policy white paper called the Rapid Deployment Policy, which is aimed at removing all the obstacles that allows or stops companies from rapidly deploying fiber optic infrastructure. It puts very firm legislation in place in terms of how long local authorities must take to deploy, to provide right-of-ways and to give permissions for companies to dig the road. And I think it's something like a 2-week turnaround that they are aiming from the moment of submission to the moment that you have the right-of-way in your hand. That is something that I think a lot of governments across the world can learn from, and we're very proud to be able to be in a position to support our government in South Africa with the writing of that policy document. So another very exciting market, of course, is East Africa. A lot of things happening in East Africa. Very similar conditions to Southern Africa, really the SADC areas. Lots of companies, Jami Telecoms, have been deploying fiber for a really long time. They've been going at it for about 7 years, quite a leader in the field. Lots of opportunities coming out with more and more operators announcing fiber optic strategies. Of course, Mauritius, the small island, only 1.3 inhabitants, but doing an extreme amount of really good work in terms of their fiber deployment. And then, surprisingly, Zimbabwe as well. The reason why Zimbabwe has got lots of FTTH is because a guy called Strive Masiwe is one of the personal investors in a company called Liquid Telecom. And he's a Zimbabwean, and I'm sure he pulled some strings to get some fiber into his own home country. But there's a lot of infrastructure being deployed in Zimbabwe, and there's a lot of good stuff being done there. Of course, Rwanda as well, very progressive government. Rwanda is known as the Switzerland of Africa. For those of you that have been here, absolutely beautiful country, beautiful people, very progressive government, lots of very strict laws, no litter allowed, you're not allowed to throw a paper down in the street. So lots of forward thinking, including their broadband strategy, driven by a president that is very strict. Many call him a dictator, but he's one of the better ones with very good forward-thinking policies. Nigeria, a lot of potential, but really disappointing. Over 100 million people live in Nigeria, with 25 million plus people just in Lagos. There should be more fiber than what there currently is. Unfortunately, lots of red tape, all counties, different policies, but I also believe that as soon as they wake up, we're going to really feel the continent move and shake because of the amount of data that they use. They are, in fact, I think, second biggest media industry in the world. They are even bigger than Bollywood, and it's known as Nollywood in Nigeria, and massive amount of local content that is produced on a daily basis. So we are holding our breath to see what's happening there. So Africa is in the global ranking. You'll see this became a bit distorted, so you'll have to find South Africa there. But yeah, South Africa is right up there, 2.9%, and then of course Mauritius with 26.7%. We were very excited last year when we finally made it onto this thing. And yeah, so that's it from me. I had a chat with somebody else this morning that came to me, and he said to me he was so surprised when he came to South Africa because he was driving down the roads and he was seeing the billboards, and these billboards are talking not about high-speed broadband, but it's actually talking about FTTH. As an industry association, we work very, very hard to establish FTTH as a brand, as a product, and we even have people that phone us and say, you know, how can we get this FTTH stuff, and it's going to take so long, can't you bring it to us wirelessly? And so we have a lot of education to be done, but it's a good problem to be had, and well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. I think we have come close to the session. thank you all for participating and sharing with us the update from the region, as well as some of the policy and regulation in your region as well. With that, I would like to go ahead and make an announcement for the 2018 conference. And I'm delighted to announce that the FTTH Council Asia Pacific is going to Manila, Philippines for the 2018 conference. And thank you very much all, and we look forward to seeing you in Manila. Thank you. Ay pasulyap-sulyap lang. Tagal ko ring naghihintay, katagal ko ring sumasablay. What's happening? What's happening? Thank you. All right, ladies, it's Christine. Yes, thank you. Yes. Okay, it's okay. Are we okay? Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and take a picture.